I don't have like big issues, but Sherman, that's really interesting. I really like your game. And I mean, really because my head was going down this road when you talked about leaders and archetypes and, who we don't get to choose forces of change, but you have, and I don't know the whole game, decided who the decision makers are that will be reviewing those scenarios and disruptions. And I'm just interested because when my head was going, I was like, oh, interesting, mothers, right? Like I'm a mother of 3 kids, so that's where my brain goes. And I think it's interesting because demographics are coming into my work with clients so much, where it's like women are not having babies anymore. They're not getting married. Our populations are declining, et cetera. And so I'm just curious because it made me think, huh, so if we get the decision makers and they're all men, you can have intellectuals, but they're not, they are part of this capitalist system. You actually, maybe you did have a spiritual leader in there, but like you don't have the people who are not in the capitalist, intellectual, military, laborer quadrants.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm wondering if you kind of explored that a little bit.
Yeah, we did. But of course, in developing a game, there will always be constraints, right? Like for example, how many cards can you actually include in the game? Because that means, printing more cards, right? We try to some sort of develop the game to its generic, basic, possible way for you to actually play the game in person, right? And the intention was, to provide some sort of an avenue or space wherein we can simulate societal dimensions of a particular scenario, for example. And it is informed and driven by the theory of social psychology, which is, regardless whether you are a male or a female, each and every person or individual, or perhaps a collective psychology could have or might have a particular generation, a dominating psychology. Like, for example, let's just say, assume that the dominant psychology currently right now is capitalism. Right. So in the way we envision the world, because everybody talks about money now, there are a lot of feed and conversation about, success is measured by your ability to acquire wealth. Right. So we are in the era of wealth generation. Right. Apparently, I would say, I might be wrong. But then, of course, you are also right that when we think of personas, there are a lot of several, multiple, plural, heterogeneous personas around the world. And we can develop those kinds of games as well. Like, for example, a mother, right? If you want to get into that, I'm really quite curious about it. And that is why later on, after playing this for 2 years, my realization is that, this could be some sort of an infinite game. Like, there are no rules. There are 2 types of playing games or developing games. One is structured and unstructured. One is finite, another is infinite, right? So in developing games, especially so, when you talk about long-term things, these are infinite things, right? Like, they don't end up by winning or losing in the process. You just keep on, right? Particularly in the issue of poverty or genetics or whatever that might be. These things are pretty quite infinite, right? Really. Organizations, movements, the things that we deal with, these are infinite things. And then when you talk about infinite things, what normally the things that are unpacked and revealed in this process are values, right? That are important to us, or perhaps those values that we can compromise or could not compromise. So, so in the Dreams and Disruptions game, it's not just about the ideas, really, but then when we think or imagine of unthought of future, we also start to question the values that we have today in the process. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Like for example, let's just say, try to combine synthetic biology and atheism, right? What would the future of synthetic biology look like if you pair that randomly? Let's just say you draw a card and the card was atheism. And you combine that, let's just say, with, let's go beyond technology and we talk about, let's just say, polyarchy as a political system. And then you have a leader, let's just say, an intellectual. So it's pretty quite subjective. The group can actually define what the intellectual is for them. Is it a bishop or a priest or a technology developer, whatever that might be? It's up to the group to define who or what the intellectual is, or a capitalist, let's just say. So it's pretty kind of, what I try to do is to make the games as subjective as possible so that, people can actually bring who they are into the game and not prescribe any definition or what.
Yeah, it's almost interesting to see that unpacking after the game that is so important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.